In this video, we'll be speaking about slope of lines. So you may have heard the word slope before, but what is slope? Well, when I think of slope, I think of hills. So a hill with a steep slope or a big slope has a big vertical change in comparison to the horizontal change, right? Can you visualize it? You're going up a steep hill. That means you're going up a lot in comparison to how much you're going forward. All right, so that's exactly what slope really is. Slope is the comparison between the vertical change of a line and the horizontal change of a line. So, for that reason, we have this equation that you've probably seen before. If not, you'll see today. Slope is rise, so how much that hill or that line or whatever we're looking at is rising, over or compared to how much it's going forward, rise over run. So now, if you're looking at a coordinate plane, the rise is measured by the difference between the y coordinates. So the rise is really y2 minus y1, the change in the y coordinates between 2 points over, and now we're looking at the x coordinates, so you guessed it, x2 minus x1. All right, so what does that mean? Let's take a look at an example. So I'm going to draw in a coordinate plane here. Forgive me, I do not have graph paper. In my coordinate plane, let's say we have to find the slope of a line that passes through 1, 1 and 3, 5. So this is just an estimate of where those points lie. All right, so it looks like that. Not too shabby. All right, so if I want to find the slope of my line, I'm comparing how much this line is rising versus how much it's running. And it's easier to see how much it's rising if we look at the y coordinates, as we just said earlier. So I'm going to call this x1, y1, because that's my first point. It actually doesn't matter if that is my first point or this is my first point, but I chose to make the top one my first point. All right, so the rise, how much is running from, rising from here up to here is 5 minus 1. It's rising from here up to here, 5 minus 1. So it's rising 4. And how much is it running from here over to here? So from 1 over to 3, it's running. And so in order to figure out how much it's running, we can do 3 minus 1. So the slope of this line, therefore, is 4 over 2, which can then be simplified to 2. So this number is just showing you how much this line is rising compared to how much it's running. All right, now one thing that's super important about finding slopes is that you have to make sure that you know at least 2 points. It could have been any 2 points on this line. It could have been the 2 points you see, but it could be any 2 other points. As long as you have 2 points on that line, you'd be able to find the slope of the line. All right, another important thing to note here is that a lot of people mix up the coordinates. So for example, if you're doing 5 minus 1, you have to make sure you then do 3 minus 1. You cannot do 5 minus 1 and then decide you're going to switch it up and do 1 minus 3. Hope that makes sense. All right, so how can you check yourself? If you got the answer as a negative number, you would know this is wrong because this is a positive slope. So we're going to talk about what a positive slope looks like, what a negative slope looks like, what zero slope looks like, so on and so forth. All right, so we just spoke about what a positive slope looks like. I love to use a little guy in order to help me explain positive, negative slope, so on and so forth. So here we have a little guy. And usually when we're picturing somebody walk, we're picturing them walk from left to right. So this guy is walking on a screen, for example, he's going that way. And if he's going that way, that means he's going up a hill. So therefore, the slope here is positive. However, if he then started to go this direction, so now he's going from here to here, blah, da, 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 he's actually going down a hill. So that's negative slope. So let's write that down. We have positive slope and we have negative slope. And now, here's what I look like when I'm on the treadmill. My incline when I am on the treadmill is often like that. Very, very easy. There is no slope whatsoever. So if you guessed it, the slope is 0 right here. But now imagine that I wanted to walk on that line right here. Well, that would be pretty challenging. Actually, it would be so challenging my head would probably fall off and I would go tumbling all the way down the hill like, ah! Alright, point is, this slope, it doesn't really exist to us. It's actually undefined. Something that's undefined, slope that's undefined, really means that there is no change in the x coordinates. So the denominator of our fraction when we do our slope equation is 0. So that's an undefined number, but you can visualize it. It doesn't make sense if you try to walk on it, and that is why that is an undefined slope. All right, just a couple more things to talk about with slope, and then we'll be done. Okay, so let's look at parallel lines. Hopefully you remember what parallel lines are, but if you don't remember, I shall remind you. All right, so if this is a line, which it is, a parallel line is a line in the same plane that will never cross with the other line. It will never intersect the other line. Now, if you look at how much this is rising versus how much it's running, what do you think about how much that line is rising, the parallel line, versus how much it's running? Well, if you guessed that the slopes here have to be equal, then you are correct. Both of these lines are rising and running. The comparison of how much they're rising and running is the exact same. They're both equal sloped lines. So that is a rule that you have to remember, that parallel lines always have equal slope. Always, 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 always have equal slope. I'm not sure what's happening to my handwriting today, but there we go. It's improving as I speak. All right, so parallel lines always have equal slope. Let's look at perpendicular lines very quickly. Okay, so here I have a line, and my line actually has a very small slope. It's not very steep. If a guy was walking up this hill, he wouldn't be very tired at all. But we do know that the sign, the slope here, is it positive, is it negative, or is it 0? Well, if you said it's positive, you are correct, because the guy is walking up the hill. All right, even though it's not a steep hill, he's still going up the hill. Well, if we had a perpendicular line, so I'm going to draw another line here in red, and it is my attempt at a perpendicular line. So now, hopefully, you see that the red line is not going to have a positive slope like the blue line. That's how I'm writing positive. The red line is actually going to have the opposite sign slope. This is a negative line. So the slope of the red line is going to be negative. I'll use the word. So perpendicular lines have opposite sign slopes. But that's not the only thing that we need to notice. If I put my guy on the red line here, he is going down the hill. And his hill that he's going down is extremely steep now. He can walk down it because it's not vertical, but it is extremely steep, not sleep. So what we need to notice here is that not only is the slope going to be opposite signs, they're going to be opposite value in a sense. So what do I mean by opposite value? I mean that they're going to be the reciprocals of each other. And I'm not sure if you've heard the word reciprocal before, but I'll explain what that means now. So for example, let's say the slope of my blue line is equal to 1/4. Then the reciprocal of 1/4 is 4/1. We have to flip this fraction. So the slope of my red line would be not just 4/1, but negative 4/1. So perpendicular lines have a negative reciprocal slope. I'll write that down because that's super important to remember. Perpendicular lines have negative reciprocal slope. So just a quick example, just to make sure we got it. If we have a line with a slope of 2/3, the perpendicular line would have a slope of, flip the fraction, change the sign, perpendicular line would have a slope of -3/2. And that's how it works. Perp slope. All right, so hope you got it. That's all there is to learn about slopes today. See you next time.